Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Ammar, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to have Jake Posner, the founder and CEO of Well Intended Ventures, a studio dedicated to building the infrastructure of the music industry needs but doesn't yet have. Their flagship project, Off the Record, offers confidential support and strategic guidance for music professionals navigating the complexities of their careers. With a decade of experience managing artists like Arizona, Arizona, and a commitment to championing the humans behind the music, Jake is on a mission to create a more connected, sustainable, and human-centered industry. Jake, welcome to Founders Future.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. I always like to start from the beginning. So take us back to before you started your company. What
Yeah.
was the motivation, the inspiration behind starting it in the first place? And I guess what problems were you looking to solve?
Yeah, I'll go all the way back to as a kid, I've always been passionate about music, and music has always been really the driving force of motivation for me in terms of just figuring out a career and my place in the music business. But even so, Well-Intended Ventures is a new company that I've recently launched, but it's all rooted really in terms of my love and my experiences in the world of being in the music business, which is where I spend 24 hours of my day, 7 days a week. And the driving force of what got me here has just been a deep love and a gratitude for being a part of this business. I know how rare it is to be able to actually find an opportunity, let alone fallen into the many opportunities I've been lucky to have in this career. And the other thing that really came with it that very much led me here to founding Well Intended Ventures, to building off the record.care. I recognize how unique this experience is that is the music industry, that is the entertainment business. And I also recognize that a lot of us, myself included, had never really had people to confide in to be able to feel like understood them, understood their journey. And, you know, I I describe well-intended ventures as, I mean, we're building bridges is the way that I like to say it. And we're doing it one step at a time because it's one bridge at a time because the music industry landscape is one to where I think there are a lot of gaps in education, a lot of gaps in execution, and there are a few people that really understand how to even track from A to B in music and in entertainment. And what I try to do is I'm just trying to provide some lights along the way. That's very much, and that's why Intended Ventures is exactly what it sounds like. They're well-intended business properties that I'm building that are the goal is really to have nobody's interest but the creative zone and the people that are there. And it is founded for the reasons that have there are no hidden motivations outside of, again, like everything is really founded in gratitude. And I am just so grateful that I get to do this. And as an entrepreneur, I've been just trying to figure out what properties, how do I spend my time to build things that will be meaningful and impactful, obviously can turn into businesses that can help support everything that I do and beyond and invest in other people. But yeah, that is the basis of everything is I'm just trying to provide some lights along the way and build some bridges to help people get there.
I love that. That's beautifully said because a
Thank
lot of
you.
times I don't know the music industry that well, but I have some buddies actually that were almost like signed by Universal and a couple
Sure.
things. But the path oftentimes is dark, and I don't mean that in an intense sense, but I meant
Yeah.
like you
Metaphorical,
don't know,
metaphorical
yeah,
sense.
like
Absolutely.
you don't know where the path is gonna lead. You don't know what the next step is a lot of the times, and having
Yeah.
lights along the way is very beneficial. I'm curious
Yeah.
though, why did you choose to go this route? Like, what problems were
Mm,
you hoping to address? In the music industry, there's many different routes that you could have chosen. Why this
totally.
specifically, and what problems are you looking to solve?
Yeah, I guess the route that I've chosen really just comes from the world that I spend every day in. So like the business that I've built outside of well-intended ventures and off the record.care is called the culture theory. And the culture theory has been management home to a number of artists, a number of songwriters, a number of producers of all stages of their careers and all genres of music. But a big part of the last decade for me has been I've been immersed in the experience of being in the music industry and having those big wild success moments in main stage at Coachella, Madison Square Garden moments. And I've had the lows of not having any idea what we're doing or where it's going. And I think for me, I think this is very much an era for myself that I'm really trying to lean into my most authentic self is the things that I feel are the truest and the realest to me that also are subject matter expertises of my own to where I've always been that confidant. I've always been that person that I joke, but it's true, as I'm the Jewish mother of every tribe I'm in. I care deeply about everybody that I invest my time and my energy into. And in that process over the last decade, I've just built a lot of incredible, wonderful relationships with both industry professionals and creatives of, again, all shapes and sizes of our business. And so many people, the biggest common denominator is the fact that no one knows exactly what they're doing, and myself included, by the way. I think that's what entrepreneurship is. It's a series of just trials and errors and figuring out what you're the best at and, how you want to spend your time. But I think that along the way, I've had a very unique vantage point into the business of music, as well as in, again, in entertainment in certain capacities, where I wanted to create a space that someone can, like, what off the record.care is really about is it's a space that people can go that is confidential, it is judgment free. But if you're just trying to figure out, make an important decision that is, whether it's I'm evaluating managers, or I'm not really sure if this is the right label situation, or am I causing the issue that I feel like I'm perceiving around me? Is there not enough momentum, and is that being driven by my team, or is it my label? I have no idea. That's the kind of space to where I for a long time, this, what off the record.care has existed. I just never gave it a name, and I never really gave it its own website and landing page for somebody that I didn't know to find me and be able to have a conversation and really be able to enter that kind of a safe space. So I guess to answer your question, for me, I've just been building the things that are the most apparent and natural to my own world and extensions of
Yeah.
that. But it wasn't without, again, a decade of trying a lot of different things. Some of them I was definitely more overstretched, and some of them I felt like I was a little bit out of my depth. But I think, especially now in this moment, I've never felt more in my depth, which is good. But it's, again, it's still an everyday process. I'm learning. We're still at month zero of launching this thing. So I'm excited to watch it develop, and I'm excited to build it into something that can help a lot of people.
That's exciting. And you're referencing off the record.care when you say month zero.
Yeah,
Okay,
month zero
perfect.
off the record.care. Jake
Uh,
career, we've been there for a minute.
I love that. Let's dive into that a little bit. I'm
Sure.
assuming the ICP is artists in the music industry. Anything else that you would add to that in terms of the ideal customer profile? And then once we have that established, just so that the listeners
Yeah.
understand,
Hmm?
offers and services off the Oro.care provides.
Yeah. So what off the record.care is really the intended client of what it is. It's anybody who is really at any stage of a music industry career, whether you're an aspiring professional, you're an established professional, who's trying to make a change or reconsidering certain things that you want an outside perspective on, or you're an aspiring or established writer, producer, artist. That's the interesting thing that I always say about the music business is it is really 10,000 independent enterprises on the open sea learning how to do business with each other.
Mm, mm,
It's very complex and it's very nuanced. And I think that everybody is trying to figure out how to make the most sense of it in every capacity, and everyone finds different moments of success. But I think it's, again, it's very much trying to, I've spent enough time around songwriters that I feel like I speak in a lot of metaphors, but they're helpful to visualize. But it very much is this open trek on the open sea. You don't exactly know where your destination is. You have an idea of where you're trying to head. And I think sometimes it's good to get a little bit of a gut check of saying, do I think I'm heading in the right direction? That not
yeah.
only is what is expected of me in this point of my career, but more so, does this feel the truest to me? Because the other part about this career is you might spend 10, 15, 20 years heading in that direction before you even see land. And it's a crazy, bizarre concept to think about, but it's true. And outside of this, like, again, having had a decade of experiences and just talking to people of every stage of their career in music, and also I'm also a mentor and an adjunct professor at the Clive Davis Institute at NYU. Like, there is no question that everybody at every stage in their career is trying to figure out and make sense of it. Some obviously have had experiences and knowledge to help them learn and help them affirm their path, but just the biggest thing about it for me is there is and again, it's all confidential, so I certainly won't say anybody who I've spoken to, but I have been surprised, and I've been pleasantly surprised to see the kinds of people that have already started booking, where I was expecting people to be the first people to start booking were especially early on into their career, just trying to find guidance. And I've in fact found it's starting at the opposite, to where it's people that have
Mm,
had immense success in certain parts of their career that are
yeah.
trying to figure out what now, what next, how do I even think about it, how do I begin? Are the people that I've rallied around me the people that make the most sense? It's so interesting because, again, I think the biggest thing, and this is where I think one of my stronger personal value propositions come in, is this is such a human experience, and something for
Yeah.
me, being I've always been an empath. I've always been somebody who's always tried to put myself in other shoes, but I very much say that I like this. I'm a student and a passionate advocate of human relations. It's just like we're all just trying to figure out how to do this and how we interact and how our business interact. So yeah, so ICP is it's really incredibly broad. And I do plan on as this thing builds out, I do want to be able to build resources for people at different stages. And I want to figure out in terms of the lens of what off the record is the vision that I have for it in terms of helping people on this very particular path. So it will grow over time. But right now it is for absolutely, and I think it always will absolutely be for anybody that is pursuing a career in music and is just sometimes needs a little bit of clarity.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's an underlying lesson with what you were talking about. You thought it was going to be a particular avatar that was booking, but it ended
Yeah.
up being the opposite end of the spectrum. And
Yeah.
I find that super interesting because a lot of the times the best market research that you can do is literally just talking to people that you want to work with. And then
Yeah.
you figure out, okay, what do they want? What do they need? And you can craft your offerings and messaging as a result of that. Now, I
Yeah.
was doing some research beforehand. And I see
Yeah.
that people have the option to book 30-minute consultations. They have the option to book 60-minute consultations. That's two offerings right there. Aside from that, what do people in the music industry have access to? Is there anything beyond that where you work with them on a longer capacity? Is that something you're still working?
So I guess as far as like me as a human being, like I am a manager. I do manage a select roster of songwriters, artists, and producers. This is as far as again, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who I value time as my business. And that's really that's the resource that I'm really playing with every day because even what management what I've reconciled management to be in music as it is probably entertainment is it is attaching yourself to a creative or a client that you deeply believe in. And management to me is just being the one to assign yourself responsible to over deliver in every capacity. You then all of a sudden assume I am head of department of marketing, I'm head of the digital department, I'm head of the business relations and biz dev. So to me, off the record is the way that I'm able to allocate and whatever spare time that I am able to allocate on a month to month basis to anybody that is just seeking answers and a little bit of objective perspective. Like it is very much, it is not designed nor will it ever be designed to be a like a funnel to try to pull in clients. I think obviously like organic relationships happen and it's incredibly normal for that. But you know, what off the record is, it's really a space that, and I, as far as how we're starting out and what my initial offering for it is to me it's like look 30 minutes is an easy way to just get started. It's also the lower cost option, it's the lower time investment option to where we can have an initial conversation if there's something that's on your mind or you're just even trying to evaluate what you could even use this space for me that's just where it starts. And the way that I've been closing out those sessions has just been saying look like I'm not expecting you to be here next week, nor is that something that I would even say that's what you need to do. But this space will always be here for you if you ever need it again. Like it's not supposed to be how, whether it's a doctor of saying, come back here in 3 months and just trying to get reoccurring business, or even again, because we're not therapy. So it's not expected to be this time the next week and next week. This is, if anything, my hope is that I have, because again, time is the limited resource here. I hope I can help as many people as I can. So I'm actually hoping that I don't have a million reoccurring people when I can really just keep helping everybody along their way. And to me, it's one chip at a time. It's one step at a time to make the music industry a better place because it is, to your point, dark, not in the sense of doom and gloom, but more of like everyone is so just very much trying to find out and figure out what their path is and how. And this
Yeah,
business changes, you know, 5 times a year in terms of what's working, what's not, and what the new thing is. I think everybody can use a gut check sometimes, and it's good to get an objective perspective.
got it. So it sounds like off the record is it's a passion project. You've got extra time
Very much
each week,
it
each
is.
let me open up my calendar and then just
Yeah.
yeah.
It's the closest thing that I can describe to it's my outlet for strategic consulting. If you need a moment and you just want to chat with somebody who's been there and understands it, that's really all it's designed for. Because
Yeah.
I'm definitely leaning into building the businesses that I think make sense for me. And I want to build them with a very specific intention. Even what you had said before is, I think that had been a thought in the past that I've had of, if I'm going to build a business, I want to see what the customer specifically thinks and I'll shape it around them. But at the same time, I feel like I've learned a lot is if you have a vision, even artists, it's up to the person who's casting the vision to really create the space that makes sense. Because if you start chasing the trends and what people seem like they like, then it loses its own sense of identity. And I think for me, what off the record is me. It's always been me. It's having a safe space and somebody to talk to and just say, hey, here's like what's on my mind. I'm trying to evaluate it without worrying about that information will never follow you. You'll never, the person or people that you're discussing in here will never know anything about this conversation. And I'm here to just be somebody you can have that conversation with, who can give you a little bit of perspective from everything that I've experienced on my side of the table.
Yeah.
So it is very, it, especially now, is incredibly binary in terms of what it serves to do.
Cool. Cool. I appreciate you breaking that down.
Yeah, of course.
From a business entrepreneurial perspective, I
Yeah.
guess if this is more of a passion project, what is your main focus? What is the vision, I guess, let's say for the next 12 months for Jake?
Sure. Okay. So the culture theory is where I spend probably the bulk of my time these days, where this is management. So I'm what I like to say that we do is we help our favorite artists make their favorite songs. And a big part of that is really an extension of me in every genre of music that I'm passionate about. And that's why it's funny, whether it's off the record or it's the culture theory. Like these are just extensions of me and my passions, and I'm building properties to support them and teams around those properties to do that with me. And so the next 12 months for me, there are inside of my roster, there's a lot of really exciting things in terms of artist projects that we're developing and songs that we're working on and cultural moments that are going to happen between different genres and artists and different culture. And for me, it's the music is also a funny place to try to plan out 12 months. That's one thing I can tell you for sure, because you never know what's going to happen in 2 weeks, let alone 2 months. But in terms of the way that I try to plot growth and strategy for my clients is always taking a look at where we're at now and where we do want to be 12 months from now in terms of altitude, in terms of stock values. And when I say that in terms of writers, producers, and artists, is more of being able to have access to the larger rooms, one step at a time to get into the room with Sabrina Carpenter kind of stuff. And for that, there's a lot of building with each of my clients respectively in the genres and the worlds that they live in. There's a lot of goals, and I call them dragons that I'm chasing, which are just like the big exciting things that I just like fiercely and relentlessly chase, to off the record being something that, like transparently, I don't think that I started this year saying that's exactly what I'm going to build right now. I think well-intended ventures has been something that I planted the flag in the ground because I knew that I wanted to build things and build these bridges. And for me, it was about, as I've been doing that, there's a few things that I've been exploring. In the background of whilst everything's happening that I haven't made public to anybody yet, I'm exploring building a series of apps and web platforms that, again, are designed to help democratize the ability to move in our business. It's not supposed to replace anybody's jobs. It's not supposed to put anybody into a hot seat, but rather because, again, we're on the open sea, 10,000 ships with no light, no direction, no map. I'm trying to build little just lights along the way to help people in certain areas that I have had very specific experiences and have built my own subject matter expertise that, and especially as a manager, I see ways that, the best way to put it is, having met with so many writers, artists, and producers, I've come and done management for 10 years. I've come to the conclusion that management doesn't really make sense for about 90% of creatives and 90% of managing professionals, because most creatives, big part of their struggle comes from going from 0 to 1. And once they get to 1 is when management, bless you, once they get to 1 is when management starts to make sense, because you have more opportunities and inbound and strategies that can be extrapolated and internalized than existed from the 0 to 1 phase. But the challenge that so many people that I talk to have that are somewhere between 0 and 1 is they feel like they can't really go about building a career if they don't have a manager, if they don't have a publisher. And the reality of it is,
Hmm.
even if you were to tap in a manager or a publisher on, and again, these deals are all equity level deals because this ranges from 15 to 20% commissions. Those people are going to be put in the same hot seat of everyday thinking that you are, of saying, all right, I love what you're doing. As I would only hope that the creative absolutely loves the music that they're making and what they're doing. But the creative has to figure out how to build their own vision and their own universe, the visual companions to their music. And also they have to explore themselves sonically to the furthest extent. And it's so many things that happen through that process that you really need to have those ducks in a row before management, publisher, anybody to take and extrapolate the vision that you have. You have to create the source material and you have to build the Bible that is your source material. While people are doing that, there's a lot of challenges that they have. Every single one that you can imagine along the way. Creatives are oftentimes, they're incredibly talented in the world of making music. A lot of people are, and I think this is humans by nature. Not everybody is as minded and as innately resourceful. And I think it's just something that needs to exist in the music industry. I think entrepreneurs are definitely going to catch entrepreneurial creatives are definitely winning right now. I think that's in the content creation world, people that are really understanding the different facets of their game that extends beyond music and in ways, honestly, seems to take precedent before the music, which is not easy, especially for music purists like me, but it is the reality as of right now. And so I think as people are trying to figure out what that means to them, I'm just trying to build tools so they can help navigate that way and not feel like they have to give up equity ownerships of their business to people that where it doesn't necessarily make sense. It's not even that the people that they give it to aren't worthy. It's just more about where are you right now in your career that it would make sense for you to think about delegating this side of the business before there's even really business to be delegated, because a lot of times it is premature.
For sure. To my understanding, Intent
Yeah.
Ventures is like the parent company. It's the
Yeah.
umbrella, and then you've got Culture Theory, Off the Record Care, and
I'll
then
give you,
stuff
yeah.
stuff coming out in the future, apps, platforms, all these different things.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. I
Yeah.
I think something that would be very interesting for the listeners to understand, because I honestly don't know how this works.
Yeah.
How does a company like Culture Theory actually generate revenue? What's the
Totally.
model on the back end?
Yeah.
Who are you working with? How do you work? How do you help them? All these different things.
Absolutely. This is the interesting part of the music industry and the economics of the music industry is the best way. And I mean, even in like our pre-interview, like the sheet of things to think about, I was saying, how would I best describe the way that that revenue is generated outside of just it's commission based is what management is fundamentally, right? So you become equity partners with, and then again, like I emphasize the word partnership than over management because this really is, it's a partnership with a creative or with a client in that world. And for me, the simplest way is we commission 20% on all the earnings that our clients generate in the world of music, and especially everything that we help generate. But the specifics and the nuances of how that money is generated is typically so the first piece as far as like pricing is I describe it as it's like a dynamic pricing model because I let's talk about the producer business that I manage. I'll give breakdowns for the producer business, the writer business, and the artist business. But the producer business is a very straightforward one to where producers are typically hired to help an artist build a song out. So to take the vision that they have in their head, whether the artist has pre-built a lot of that vision and they just need somebody who is an expert in music production and can polish it and make it really feel great, or take half of the vision, the source material, and help really extrapolate it to be the vision that the artist has in mind at the highest level. And once that work is done, there is an exchange of ownership effectively to where the artist then becomes the owner of the song. The producer is then going to have an equity share. So let's say that the song is made, the artist says, hey, I want to put the song out, whether they're independent or they're signed to a label. Then obviously the producer has to get compensated for their time in exchange of ownership. So typically like a production contract is drawn up where then the producer is going to get paid a fee. That fee is relative. The way that I explain fees for producers in the music business is a lot of it has everything to do with even the stock value and the experience that this particular producer has in terms of being able to determine your base price. So if I have a producer that has been doing it in this business for 10 years, they've built up a very consistent business. And the other way that I can, outside of the work that they have done, I'm very much an opportunity cost guy. So the basic way to say, hey, based on the amount of time that this took, based on the work that they did here and the investment of their time, their typical price is $10,000 a song. And the reality of that situation is depending on the artist and their situation, $10,000 may or may not be something that they could even offer. And that's where I also really enjoy the active creative deal making because I'm not here to say, hey, then take a second mortgage out on your house or figure it out, pay us. Then it's a conversation of saying, okay, so what do you guys actually have an appetite to afford? What is comfortable that can make sense and be reasonable for both sides? And wherever the deficit lives, we basically attach a higher return rate and percentage in equity of the song. So the master is what the actual recording is called. And so then say the producer and the artist are going to split a 50-50 royalty until the producer recoups whatever the missing chunk is. And then at that point, the master share then will dilute down to where the producer retains 20%, the artist has 80% and full ownership of the song always. So, that's basically like a rinse repeat process for all of my writers and producers over the course of an entire year. Different artists, there's never not a creative deal to be made. Everyone has different situations. And the artist side of the business is a lot more, I guess there are a lot more spokes and sides to that wheel, bless you, where for the artist side of the business, there is, and again, it's why labels commonly, especially these days, do 360 deals. They have revenue sources from all sides. So they have merch, they have touring, they have their recordings, they have their publishing, which also producers have, as especially songwriters. On the artist side, those are typically, and management in that world is a very immersive business, which is why I'm also as a manager myself, I'm very big on there's no such thing as a small project, and artists are fully immersive projects. You're involved in every department, and every department has an ability to generate money. Is the best way to put it. And those are also commission-based structures. Some artists, when they do get to a level, and every client, every artist does have this opportunity to do that, is they may choose to retain their management or their teams on a salary basis, to where that can be, again, this is the music industry. There's no such thing. It's entrepreneurship fundamentally, right? Everything can be a conversation. And then songwriters, it's the toughest part of the business. And songwriters are a discipline that I've also very, very loudly advocated for a long time, because you think the economics of the music business as a whole is hard. Being a songwriter, like a sole songwriter, and that's the main thing that you do, the way that publishing, and this would be a whole podcast of its own, so I won't go too deep here, but the way that a master of sound recording will generate revenue versus the composition, which is effectively the sheet music, are very different. And they also incur revenue at different rates from different sources. So you have a song that streams 1 million times on Spotify. What the master side will generate, which is really for the artist and the producer, will be different from what the writer will collect. So writers it's a tough gig, but it's so important. And music doesn't live without songwriters. So it is a tough gig, but they're also a big reason that I'm building a lot of things that I'm building, because giving 20% of what is already a very lean revenue stream for a lot of writers, especially early on in their career, isn't something that necessarily makes sense for the writers, but also doesn't even make sense for the managers, because there's not a lot of revenue to collect. That's why also publishing has become a big game as well, it's very much like an agency model of representation in that capacity. But
100%. Super, super interesting. I appreciate you breaking that down because I had no
of
clue.
course, yeah, it's very deep in nuance. So it would
It
be
sounds like
many
it.
episodes.
100%. What's the best way for people to reach you?
For me, Instagram is probably where I spend the most time in terms of connecting to community. So that would be, it's just my last name, Posner, on Instagram. But that would probably be the best way. And then there's always links to, like you said, even I was gonna one up the umbrella even more. Is Posner XYZ is the entity which culture theory and well-intended ventures lives. And both of those are their own umbrellas of everything. Find me at my last name, and we'll figure out where everything goes from there.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. And then obviously off the record care to schedule
Yes.
a consultation with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just here for anybody that's passionate about making music, man.
I love it, man. So that wraps up another insightful episode of Founders Future. Thank you so much, Jake, for sharing your journey.
Thank you, Ammar. It's nice to meet you. I appreciate the conversation.
You as well. For our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you're looking to scale your company and you're looking to enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to discover how we can support your growth journey. Until then, keep on climbing.